What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 20 of Lobbing Scorchers. That's right, we are back in action. This is Ari Lillianwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Noah, for the first time in a long time, say what's up to the people.
Welcome to season 2.
Season 2, we're back. We took a little off-season hiatus from recording this, but we're going to get back on it. It's time. I think we both had a lot of stuff going on, not to make excuses or anything, but we've been moving out of the Lobbing Scorchers mansion. You know, I was looking for housing, been packing all my stuff up in U-Hauls and getting my new place set up. And so we're coming to you live from my new house. Noah's over here. What do you think, Noah? It's pretty nice in here, right?
It's nice. You took all that MajorLeagueSoccer.com money and put it into something.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely
classy.
living in luxury in a basement unit in North Seattle. But no, I'm pretty happy with it in all seriousness. But now that I'm a little settled, Noah, you're pretty much done moving too. So
I mean, hey, moved once, ready to move again.
We're ready to get back at it. The MLS season is underway. Seattle Sounders season is underway. There's going to be a lot of content now for us to talk about. There was over the offseason too. I wish we had gotten to record at least a couple over the offseason, given all the stuff that happened with the Sounders and around MLS. It's a little bit of a new look for Seattle this year. Not the most roster turnover in the league, but certainly some big moves. One really big move in particular, which we're going to talk about a lot on this episode, with Pedro de la Vega signing as a young DP. But the season is underway. It got underway with a 2-1 defeat to LAFC at BMO Stadium in Los Angeles on Saturday. So we're going to talk about that game. Unfortunate result, but some good stuff to talk about too. So we'll get into that. And we're also going to be previewing Seattle's next matchup against Austin FC later in the show, and also talking about some of the other results that went on around MLS last night. So excited to be back. It's going to be a fun season. We're going to try and do these on a regular schedule. Our track record of doing that has not always been a strong track record, but we're going to do our best. And
it's like going to the gym. New season, you start out strong.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be fun. But before we get into all that, I wanted to start this show on kind of a more somber note, Noah. I wanted to give a hearty R.I.P. and farewell to @LiveSounders, the Seattle Sounders official play-by-play account that they announced that they're discontinuing the use of before the first game. And that's a sad day for me in particular because as some of you probably know, I used to run that account for all the home games. My friend Shane Evans he founded that account back in the day. And it's been the source of a lot of great memories over the years. I think what Shane did a great job of when he created Live Sounders was making it kind of a unique voice. It's a little bit, you kind of put your own spin on the live tweeting as opposed to just like the generic play-by-play. And he really established a really great, really funny, fun voice with it. And, when I got the chance to run that account, which I've done for the last few years, I did my best to carry on that legacy. And I'd like to think I did that. There was some legendary tweeting done over the years. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I sent some really good tweets.
You fired off some bangers.
I fired off some bangers. I'll say I understand the decision to discontinue it. I was noticing last year that the interactions on the tweets, they just didn't pop like they used to. Even it was irrelevant to if the tweets were good or not. I could still tweet out the bangers, and they didn't seem to get as much engagement as they used to. Twitter's a little bit of a dying platform these days, unfortunately. I know I don't even really use my personal account as much as I used to back in the day. A lot of things have gone south with the platform. We don't really need to get into the fine points of the Elon Musk era, but
the platform formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, I think a lot of brands you're going to see probably gravitate away from the platform in this type of way, unfortunately. which is sad because as much as I hate on Twitter, I've had a lot of great times with it over the years, and I still use it to keep track of the news. And I was sending tweets from my own account on the game last night, but it's just not the same as it used to be. So hopefully someone can come in and change that someday. But for now, like I said, R.I.P. and farewell to Live Durs. I wanted to relive a couple of my most legendary tweets from Live Durs, Noah, if you'll indulge me.
I would love to indulge.
I think my favorite tweets that I ever sent from Live Durs were, well, one of them was during the I want to say it was the COVID year.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of good ones that year.
Yeah, the Western Conference Final against Minnesota United.
And the final game of the season.
Yeah, exactly. There was no MLS Cup played that year.
Yeah.
That was the final game of the season. But if you'll remember, Gustav Svensson, legendary sounder, he scored a game-winning header in stoppage time, I think, of that game. And Minnesota had been up 2-1, if I remember correctly, until really late in that game. And then Rui Diaz tied it. And Gustav Svensson had a header right at the death, 3-2 to send Seattle to MLS Cup, which they didn't play in. And, you know, that was kind of that was a really weird time. Empty ass Lumen Field, no fans there. And I remember going into those playoff games that year. I think they beat LAFC the game before that too.
Yeah.
And, you know, society was down so bad. There was no fans at the games. And I remember just thinking, you know, I'm going to have to bring it on Live Durs. Both, you know, for my personal legacy on Live Durs, but also because I feel like at that time, you know, the return of MLS in the games, even though there are no fans there, it really, at least speaking for myself, it offered a respite from the fact that society was crashing and burning around us. So I was like, I really want to bring it for these tweets, give people something to follow, something fun. And when Gustav Svensson scored that game winner, you know, whenever he scored a goal or made a great play, I would go with the Goose is Loose tweets.
Yes.
And I just got the idea as soon as he scored the goal. I was like, I'm just going to Google image search pictures of geese and just start firing them off. No context. So I pulled like 4 or 5 images as fast as I could, just cut and paste, bam, cut and paste, bam, cut and paste, bam. And I like, you know, sometimes with Twitter, it's simple as effective. I didn't put any captions. I didn't put any commentary with them. I had the gooses loose on a couple of the prior tweets, but just 4 or 5 photos of a goose, and the stats on all of them were incredible. They were all pulling like 500-600 likes.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone's replying the goose is loose. I was proud of that one.
You were in playoff form.
I was in playoff form. That was good social media, and I think it's a good example of like what made Live Durs such a good account. You know, like you can't really do that from the team account, but like from a play-by-play account where you get to have your own voice and spin on it, you can do stuff like that, and it hits. You know, the engagement was good, and I'd like to think when I have a good idea and a good tweet like that, it added to people's game day experience and how like they experienced a legendary moment like that. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what I'd like to think. My other favorite Live Durs night was definitely the 2019 Western Conference Final at LAFC. That was a really funny one because pretty much nobody, myself included, thought Seattle had a chance to win that game. And when Atuesta scored to go up 1-0, I kind of figured it was going how people expected that it would. And but then Seattle, Nico Ladero scored the equalizer to tie it, and then Rui Diaz scored another one, I believe, to put them up 2-1 going into halftime. And that's sort of when I decided, you know, I'm going to lean into the fact that this is this is an upset in the making here. No one really expected this outcome. LAFC, if you remember that year, had a plus 48 goal differential. At that time, they were the most dominant MLS team I'd ever seen. As good as Seattle was that year, everyone thought LAFC was going to win that game.
They were nasty.
Handily. They were nasty that year. That's, still they've had some dominant teams since then, but I still think that 2019 team was kind of on a different level.
Yeah. Which is kind of perfect for them because it's that classic, like, so good, so quality, but still can't get the job done.
Yeah, it's sort of that game was the start of them fostering their reputation as big game choke artists.
Yeah.
But at the time that was not the case. And anyway, basically I spent the second half kind of needling and antagonizing all the national pundits that had been picking against Seattle in the game. I didn't tag or call out a specific pundit. It's more the pundits as a concept. That was also kind of the genesis of the bit of antagonizing the proverbial and literal national pundits. And the fans I think got a big kick out of that because what Seattle did in the game just flew in the face of what everyone thought was going to happen. So I tried to capture that in the tweets, and I sent off some really good ones that night. Like when I think about my best live Durs tweets, I think that game was like my magnum opus. Like I consider that like the
height of your professional posting.
The height of my professional career, to be honest, was specifically that game. I still think it's the most legendary win in Sounders history, considering the opponent, the venue, everything that was at stake, and what the expectations were versus what the reality turned out to be, So anyway, like I said, I definitely understand the decision that they made to move away from the account, but it's still a sad day. And I wanted to say, thank you to everyone who followed along while I was live tweeting those games over the years. I had a blast with it. It's definitely some of the most fun that I've had since I've been around this team was getting to fire off those tweets. And, wouldn't have been possible without everyone who interacts with the pregame Jordan Morris content and asked me for the lineup. Mm-hmm. So R.I.P. and shout out to Live Durs. It was a hell of a run. I'm going to miss it, but, we push forward.
So does that make you now officially semi-pro poster? You went from professional poster and now you're semi-pro poster.
I guess that's one way of looking at it.
This is your retirement speech.
I'd still like to think of myself as a pro poster. And one thing I was
free agent poster.
Yeah, I'm a free agent poster. If you need anyone to fire off some banger tweets,
re-entry draft,
probably your guy. But no, I was letting some tweets fly from my own account during the game last night, which is something that I still did sometimes because I only did live Durs for the home games. So I would do that during the road games sometimes in past years, but not as often really last year. And so last night I was kind of getting back to that. And I had fun because, I can, when I'm tweeting from my own account, I can put more of my own kind of thoughts and opinions and feelings into it. Whereas, when you're tweeting from a team account, you can't really do that as much. So I definitely I was enjoying it last night, like kind of tweeting with the people again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I felt like I was back in the trenches.
Yeah, no,
with all of you.
You're in the mud with me and getting into fights with fan TV accounts.
Yeah, that's like that was a good quote that you had. It's always entertaining to see the fan bases beefing with each other, especially these two fan bases, because there's no love lost. That 2019 game was the better than Bob game.
It was.
And
God, that game really was that game. That was the game.
That was the game. It totally was. Anytime anyone asks me what the game was, that's what I say. It was such a good dub. But LAFC fans, I don't think they ever really got over that. My other story from that game is right after the game was over, I was leaving to get back to my hotel, and I was walking outside the stadium, and I was feeling myself just because of how big of a dub it was and how good my tweets were, not to brag, but I just remember seeing this really drunk LAFC fan stumbling around out in front of the stadium, and he didn't like know who I was or anything. Like he didn't know I was from Seattle or affiliated with Seattle at all. But he was just stumbling around, and his girlfriend was trying to kind of like corral him because he was all over the place. And he just like looks up at the sky and he goes, "Man, fuck Seattle." And I was just laughing my ass off because that was the prevailing sentiment around BMO Stadium that day, which at the time was Bank of California Stadium.
That was was that the New Who game too with the kick of the beer can after too?
Yep, nope, good point. That was the game where after the match, the Sounders were celebrating in front of the traveling supporters and LAFC fans, as they tend to do sometimes. They still do this.
They do love that.
They were hurling beer cans on the field, and New Who famously saw a beer can flying down at him and just kicked the hell out of it. Like he caught that thing clean.
That was better than most of his clearances. Like
so he hit it with like, I think that scissor kick clearance, but it was a can of Dos Equis, and a photographer. I really wish I remembered who it was so I could name drop him. But
I think it was.
Hopefully we can look that up and put it in the description or something. But they got an insanely iconic picture of New Who mid-swing hitting the beer can, and it's spraying everywhere. The video guy, Brian Babcock, my buddy, he's like right in the background of that picture. Let's jump into the review of last night's game versus LAFC. As fun of a little trip down memory lane as that was of that conference final. Yesterday's game did not go that well. And frankly, the last few times that the Sounders have played LAFC since that conference final, this sort of budding rivalry that Seattle and LAFC have has been tilted in favor of LAFC, both in terms of the head-to-head matchups. I mean, LAFC won the playoff game in Seattle last year, but also, frankly, in terms of their standings as frontrunners in the league.
Proverbially.
LAFC, we've had as much fun as anybody with their big game chokes over the years. In fact, we dedicated an entire episode of Lobbing Scorchers to it.
Correct.
Last year when they lost the CONCACAF Champions League final. So that's all well and good. And trust me, I will continue to do that every time they do choke in a big game, like they did in MLS Cup last year as well. It's a little unfortunate all the things that happened in the lead up to this game. I was really looking forward to this game because obviously it's the first game of the season, and that always comes with its own level of excitement. Everyone feels like they're an MLS Cup contender on match day one. But there's been a few moving parts over the offseason, most notably Pedro de la Vega, but you got guys like Nathan, you got guys like Danny Musovski as well, who those guys aren't starters, and they ended up featuring in the game. But basically, you just want to see how everything looks, how preseason went, how everything's fitting together. And unfortunately, we did not really get that opportunity because in the preseason lead up to this game, half the team got injured. You had Stephen Fry out for this game. I think he had a hip injury in training. You have João Paulo out for this game. You have Yamar out for this game. Albert Rusnak, literally the day before the game, busted his ankle in training. He was out for this game.
Yeah.
And so it became a thing where it just wasn't really a game where you can evaluate the actual team. Which
you were getting your C squad.
It's just unfortunate. I don't know if I would go so far as to call it a C squad.
Well, it was a mismatch.
It
was a rotated squad.
It's exactly. It's the type of starting 11 that you put out when it's like 3 or 4 months into the season and everyone's taking knocks and fatigued.
It's a U.S. Open Cup squad,
pulling their hamstrings or whatever, and it's just frustrating to go into the first game of the season like, all right, we're already doing this. We're already having to basically throw every projected lineup out the window and do this mix and match stuff where it's just hard to get a feel of what the actual team is going to look like, because I think specifically in this game, it's really hard to evaluate it offensively without JP and without Rusnak.
Yeah.
Those are two of your most important players.
It's the engine.
JP is your engine, and Rusnak, this was his year at the number 10, right? So a lot of stuff in attack, and in JP's case, both sides of the ball, is going to run through those two guys. And when you don't have them, it's like a car with an engine that's like not.
You're missing cylinders.
Exactly. Thanks for saving
your,
that
your
analogy.
pistons aren't firing completely.
Which, that stuff is going to happen over the course of an MLS season. It's just unfortunate that it happened before the first game, especially because this matchup with LAFC was a tasty one. These are the two teams that most of the national pundits have picked to finish at or near the top of the West this year. So I was really looking forward to seeing something resembling a full strength matchup between these two teams, and we just did not get that. LAFC didn't have a lot of injuries, but one of my big takeaways from this game, getting to see the LAFC that we got to see, is that they're still among the elite teams in MLS. Unfortunately, I take no joy in having to say that. I thought they had as much roster turnover as anybody this year. I think the stat was they had almost 50% of their the guys who plays the most minutes not on the team anymore. They had to sign a lot of new guys, integrate those guys. Sometimes that takes time, and just with LAFC, it pisses me off because they just don't have to adapt or adjust to that for some reason.
I mean, I think that they looked like they were still adjusting. I think even Bawanga looked like he was still figuring it out. I think that's why the scoreline was as close as it was. Yeah,
but I think the scoreline flattered Seattle a little bit.
For sure.
LAFC could have had at least a couple more goals. They hit the post at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Bawanga hit the post multiple times by himself. I can't believe Bawanga didn't have a goal in this game. He hit the post at least twice. I want to say maybe even 3 times. And if you play that game 100 more times, he's probably one of those is finding the net in a lot of those games. So LAFC, when LAFC is on their game, it's like they're playing at a different speed, man. That's really what it looks like.
Yeah.
We could talk about the reasons for that. I think it's just because they're really, really good at scouting, and they're really good at finding players that fit that style and can play into the identity of how they want to play. And I got to give respect to it. The fact that they were able to look like they did in attack for a lot of that game, and generate the chances they did and get close to having 3 or 4 goals. I think it's fair to say that they should have had 3 or 4 goals in this game. I mean, that is a credit to them. I think it was a bit of a scattershot performance from Seattle defensively. But I credit at least some of that to the fact that LAFC looks like one of the best teams in the league again. And, based on what I saw in this game, it's only one game, but I pretty much expect that to hold true throughout the season. It seems like they have their formula down, and they were executing it well once again in this game. LAFC's goals came from Timothy Tillman and Bogus. I'm not going to try and say his first name. I think it's Matthias. But like I said, they could have had more. Seattle ran out in a 4-4-2.
What did you think about that?
When I first saw the graphic, I was like, okay, I can see how this makes sense without Rusnak. There's not really a logical like for like Rusnak replacement. I thought the way they might do it is rock CR10 in the 4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
Which I think would have been a defensive play as well. But I've thought of the idea of Morris and Rui Diaz as dual strikers could be worth a run for a while. So given the situation with personnel, I didn't mind that here. Rui Diaz and Jordan up top, and then you had Christian and Leo Chu as your wingers. Atencio Vargas as your double pivot, and then a back line of Alex Roldan, and Nuhu as your fullbacks. Nathan got the start with Yamar out. Jackson Reagan, who projects as the first choice starter throughout the season, and then Andrew Thomas was in goal for Stephen Fry. I thought Andrew Thomas actually did pretty well. I don't think you can blame him for either of the goals, and he made all the saves that he needed to.
I think he looked rough, but it was also his debut, and clearly, I don't think in his mind he was going into game one starting.
No, and so like with that being the case, I definitely don't think goalkeeping was the reason that Seattle lost this game.
No,
why
not
they
at all.
conceded either of their goals. And, even on all the ones where LAFC hit the post, a lot of that was just defensive breakdowns and Dennis Pawanga making plays. Wasn't really anything the goalkeeper did. So I thought Nathan did okay at CB too. He had run really big clearance when Pawanga got in on goal and
almost did his hammy there.
It looked like he did his hammy, but he ended up staying in the game, and I thought he acquitted himself well. Nathan I think that was a good signing. He's played at a high level for San Jose. I think he's had some injury issues, but he's a talented defender, and I really like the CB depth on this team.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the strongest position group. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree 100%.
When
it was last year too.
It was last year too, but you throw in
and Javi even seems like he looks good.
I thought Javi
too.
looked pretty good too. For as much heat as Javi Arriaga has taken over the years, at least in this game, I thought that he did all right. I think a lot of Seattle's defensive issues were about kind of. Nuhu lost track of Timothy Tillman on LAFC's first goal, but then also, not to bag on the Atencio Vargas double pivot, but I think when you see a game where there's stretches of the game like that, where the game state is so heavily in kind of tilted towards one team, a lot of the times that's because you're getting run on midfield a little bit. And I think Atencio and Vargas, especially Atencio, he kind of started to break out last year. And I think we all know how talented Obed is. With that as the double pivot in a game against an opponent like this, in an environment like this, it's probably going to strain your midfield a little bit. And, without having watched the game again, my guess would be that's probably what happened a little bit.
No, they were getting beat. I noticed that during the game that both of them were kind of diving in a little bit too much, leaving that just enough space in the central, just the central final third where, someone would get beat, someone would have to cycle back in, and then that leaves another man unmarked to kind of push out wide, that just kind of cycle of movement and that attacking play. I think it happened a couple times, and they're young, they're talented, but it's not like you have someone like JP with one of those guys to kind of be that insurance.
It's a big ask for an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old who are still both just starting their careers to run a midfield in these type of circumstances.
Like we said, the engine of the team.
Hopefully we get to see JP in the Austin game. I don't know if Rusnak's going to play. It sounds like he's going to be out for a couple more weeks. I just want to see something closer to what we all thought the projected starting 11 was going to be. I'm still salty that this game didn't pan out like that. I just wanted to see it. I just wanted to see it. I've been looking forward to seeing it for, the last month leading up to the season, and we just really did not get to see at all what it's supposed to look like. So I'm salty about that.
Yeah. What was he doing to do his ankle like that? In the day before the game. I
don't know.
What are you doing?
You can do your ankle at any time, just
was he
jogging around?
Was he just walking up from Pike Place Market and just twisted it on that big ass hill? What are you doing?
That could have happened. I think he, I think they were probably just doing scrimmage stuff and he rolled it. So, it is what it is. He'll be back soon. It's just a sprained ankle, but like I said, annoying. I think the key play in this game, Noah, at least from a Seattle perspective, it actually happened in the second minute when Jordan Morris had a 1v1 with Hugo Lloris, and he had it saved. It was a really good opportunity. I can't remember off the top of my head who threaded that ball through, but it was it's the type that's the type of chance where in a game like this, if you really want to have a realistic shot at winning the game, you have to score that. And I hate to be the guy, like, you'll never hear me say when a forward misses a chance, he has to finish that. I hate saying that because, you know, I try not to nitpick an individual play for a professional athlete that, you know, can do things that I certainly couldn't do. You know, you gave me that one-on-one. I'm not making it. So, I know it's different because these guys get paid a lot of money to finish chances like that. But it's more just like when you have a set amount of chances like that over the course of a given season, some of them are going to go in, some of them are going to get saved. You're going to miss a couple sitters. So I try and judge it more off by what the conversion rates and stuff look like over a larger sample size, certainly than one game. So I'm not going to get on Jordan too much for having that shot saved. Hugo Lloris is one of the best goalkeepers of all time, honestly. Who looked in prime form, by the way. He looked good. He had a really good game. Yeah, that was another disturbing thing about watching. Because I thought he was going to be just washed. I mean, I was kind of hoping that would be the case, but that is not the case. He looked really, really good. And that's unfortunate for the rest of the Western Conference. You know, they had Maxime Crépeau, who is a really good upper tier goalkeeper in MLS, but it certainly looked like an upgrade. Yeah, I think they leveled up there, even at 30. And just leadership wise, even like having him there, that's undeniably a positive. Yeah, we had one of our writers do a little spotlight post game story on him after the game, and that's one of the things they were talking about in the article on MLSsoccer.com is Andy Diosa is our new writer who wrote that, by the way. So you should go check it out. But yeah, it's he's one of the best goalkeepers of all time. He starter for the French national team for 145 whatever caps, and has played for Tottenham forever and been one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. So this is a great player. And even at 37, you can see that he still has the ability. And one of the things they were talking about after the game was just, that leadership and that mentorship that he brings to their team and their locker room. It's a boost for them. What can I say? It's unfortunate, but he looked really good in the game. He got Jordan Morris on that one. Which just reminded me of that last LAFC game where Morris had his shot saved. Was it LAFC? It was in the playoffs. Where I think in the playoff game you were talking about, the last season it was it was Crépeau who got him, and that was honestly that save by Crépeau in the playoffs was the reason they won. It was the reason he made a few saves that were the reason that they won, but that was an unbelievable. It was insane. Save. I feel like that save, like the narrative after that was how Jordan flubbed the chance, right? And I don't know. We talked at length that it was just an insane save. It's an insane save. Like, he was like, he had to like reach back, like unbalanced and like barely got a fingertip. Because we talked about it. He went from being down low on the wrong side of the shot to somehow launching his body up on his, like using his back leverage to like get it on the other side. It was a crazy save. It gave me PTSD flashbacks from that. I didn't think of that at the time, but it's a good point. But anyway, realistically, like if you were gonna get a point in this game, you probably had to score multiple goals. Holding LAFC to less than 2 goals at home, with how good they looked, that was probably going to be a tall task. So after conceding the first goal, trying to get out of there with a 2-2 is probably your most realistic proposition. And to Seattle's credit, they did get 1 goal back in the second half. And I guess that's a good segue to talk about Pedro de la Vega, because I feel like if there was a reason for encouragement and optimism in this game, it was definitely the Pedro de la Vega cameo. Okay. Easily. We haven't really done the whole backstory because we didn't record like when the signing actually happened. But I mean, this is a big signing. This is a young DP. $7.5 million whatever transfer fee. He's coming from Lanús, which is an Argentine top flight club where Diego Valeri actually started his professional career. And Pedro de la Vega said that Diego Valeri was actually a resource that he reached out to when he was talking about joining Seattle and MLS. So in a way, it's kind of weird, but Sounders fans kind of got to thank and shout out Diego Valeri, because apparently he said very good things about the whole Pacific Northwest and MLS and just the quality of life that he would have living in the Northwest. And that, along with several other guys that Pedro de la Vega knows from Argentina, kind of helped sell him on coming here. So he arrives with quite a bit of pedigree. I mean, I would say, based on the research I did about him, he's considered one of the better up and coming young attacking prospects coming out of Argentina right now. And he's had a little bit of he's missed some time with injury, I believe, but last year was the first year of his professional career where I think he really got consistent run playing and starting for Lanús, and he put up some pretty solid numbers. I want to say 6 goals, 6 assists in league play. I'm not sure if that's totally right, but it's something to that effect. And I think you saw it in this game, Noah. I think you did. Just really good and dynamic on the ball. He had one run in particular that I'm remembering where he kind of shed his defender and made like a 20, 30-yard run, at least solo run, which is something that you saw him do on his highlight reel a lot.
Yeah.
And, you can see his gifts as a facilitator and a passer, which he's going to get some goals. I would say my read on it is he's about as goal dangerous as Nico Ladera was in his prime, which is to say, he's not going to score you 15, 20 goals in a year probably, but he can probably give you that 6 to 8, hopefully close to double-digit goals range, especially if he's taking penalties. I think that's a realistic hope that he can get you double-digit goals. But what this team was lacking last year was that creativity, that bite, that sauce, that guy who can set other people up with these really good chances, which Seattle just wasn't able to do consistently last year. You saw it in flashes
with the Chu Morris connection.
With the Chu Morris connection, exactly. You saw it at times, but it was not consistent enough. And I think everyone on the team and the coaching staff would probably acknowledge that. They ended with 41 goals last year, and there was just really, really long stretches where the attack just felt stagnant and it was not consistently producing. And I still think Leo Chu has a valuable role on this team. I tend to think it's more as a super sub with Pedro de la Vega in the fold. I think Pedro de la Vega, that's your left winger, in my opinion. I don't really see any other way they should line it up. And
Leo Chu looked lost yesterday too.
He didn't have a very good game. And I was chest thumping on Leo Chu at one point last year because he had the 4 assist game. He played really well. There was a time where it kind of looked like he was breaking out, and I was taking a victory lap on that because my take had been leading up to last season that Leo Chu just, I wasn't trying to say that I knew that he was this great elite player, but it was more about if you sign him as a U22 initiative player, which Seattle did, and you spend all this money on him, you have to give him the minutes to find out, right?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Can't, they were doing this thing where he got to the team and he was only getting spot duty. He wasn't really getting a lot of run, which that's fine when he first gets there. There's an acclimation period to all these young signings that get to MLS like that. But it gets to a point where you have to give him the run to see what you got. And I think, Schmetz understood that and saw enough in training to give him more of a run last year. He started a lot of games, played a lot of minutes last year. And there were times last year where the Leo Chu experience was really good. So I want to acknowledge that because I feel like he is a guy who has taken a lot of heat for inconsistency and poor decision making, which is entirely valid. And you kind of saw why those talking points are out there in the game yesterday with his decision making in attack. But he also, for long stretches of last year, for better or for worse, was the only guy in attack who was really making things happen.
Yeah. There were multiple games where the only reason that they were in the game or that they had any attacking juice in general was because he was like going all out and just balling.
Especially the really lengthy stretches of the season where Christian was out and you didn't have his presence down the right side. Pretty much the whole offense was spamming the ball to Leo Chu down the left side. And it was effective at times. So, but with that acknowledged, it just seems like Pedro de la Vega, there's a different type of pedigree there.
He's in another tier.
He I don't want to put anything on him too soon before we see a little bit more of a sample, but like I think you can tell, like just from watching him play yesterday, he looks like the most dynamic player on the team already, and he got his goal. It was from the spot, but like I'll tell you why that's not even really that much of a caveat. I mean, I saw enough from the run of play to be able to feel like, okay, like I see the skill set here. I see how this is supposed to fit. I think this could work. But I thought the fact that he ended up taking the penalty was significant. Rui Diaz and Rusnak both weren't on the field. Those are two guys that might have an argument to take a penalty in the event that they were also on the field. So I think Rusnak probably takes it if he had been playing, but
you don't think he hands it off?
I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question. I feel like in that scenario, the way it usually works is that the guy who's been on the team, and Rusnak is a leader on the team, he might take it. But I also can see
Jordan was on the field.
Jordan has never really been a penalty taker, though.
That's true.
Like, although the times that I've seen Jordan take penalties, he's been good at it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen him like take one in a game. I mean, Nico Ladero, this was his job for so many years, and he was so good at it. So it's kind of like a little bit up in the air on who's going to take him this year. I kind of assumed it would be Rusnak, but he wasn't playing. But it was good to see Pedro de la Vega step up and be like, okay, I'm taking this. I'm taking this PK. It's my first few minutes of my MLS career, but I'm going to be up to this moment. He steps up there on the road at LAFC against Hugo Lloris, one of the best goalkeepers of all time. And he drills it, sends him the wrong way, converts the penalty, makes it 2-1. Nice to see, even in a losing effort, that he stepped up to that moment and delivered. And it's stuff like that. Like, you're looking for signs early that this is a big time player who can make a significant impact on this team. And I think drilling a penalty like that is a nice little data point to that effect.
Yeah.
Even outside of the contributions that he made on the field, which I just felt like the attack just really looked...
It flowed
a lot better when he was in the game. And as soon as he's physically able, he was coming off of a knock and then he was dealing with visa issues, so his fitness wasn't all the way up. So that's why he had to play the super sub role. And kind of by the time that he got in the game, Seattle was already down 2-0. But I'm just looking forward to seeing what the team looks like when he's starting, because really so much of this season, Noah, hinges on this signing not just being a hit, but being a demonstrable hit.
Yeah.
Like, this needs to be an impact player who's putting up numbers, and
it's the start of the rebuild.
I mean, yeah, in a way, I think you could say that. I think they're kind of in a situation where it's rebuilding and retooling in a way, but
retooling
also,
I think is a better, retooling,
trying to contend at the same time, though. It's not like when you hear the term rebuild, you sometimes think about lean years and sacrificing results in the name of future progress. That's not really how Seattle rolls. Seattle is rolling trying to win every trophy they play for every year. That's just what the expectations are.
Yeah, which is why I think it was great to keep. Like, I was very much in the camp of, let's get rid of Raul, because like we can just sign a really good player like Pedro de la Vega and then get a dynamic striker who's like nasty. But it's like, it's almost is genius the way that they've done it in, let's build out our engine, right? You've got Pedro de la Vega on the wing, and then you're keeping Rusnak, who's nasty. I'm pro Rusnak. I've always been. I think there's a pro Rusnak podcast.
This is a pro Rusnak podcast. I was already getting people in my mentions yesterday talking about how, it wouldn't matter even if you play. I had a tweet to the effect of like, I want to see it with JP.
Yeah.
I want to see it with Burt Rusnak.
Yeah.
I want to see it with De La Vega starting. Like, maybe this is just how my brain operates, but like when I see a lineup like that and it's kind of a survival test type of game, I'm not gonna sit on this podcast and talk about how the offense is terrible again and we're just watching the same movie as last year. If we see
it didn't even look like last year though.
When before De La Vega got in the game, low-key kind of
that's fair.
But that's you have to take the personnel into account when you're evaluating that, in my opinion. Now, if JP had been playing, if Rusnak had been playing, if De La Vega had been starting, and it still kind of looked like the same sort of struggling offense that we saw last year, then I would be like, okay, that's a little disturbing that you've had all these changes and you had De La Vega and Rusnak and JP all playing together and you're still racking up minor amounts of XG but not finishing. All right, that's not good. But like, I'm not going to say that until I see the actual something closer to the actual 11. We might never see the actual 11. That's how MLS season works.
Correct.
As much as we give the Sounders a hard time about like always having these injuries and always having these rotated lineups, I think everyone thinks that affects their team the most because they follow their team, right? But like there's precious few MLS teams who go through seasons without being in these situations.
Correct.
For Seattle right now, it's really unfortunate that it happened right off rip before the first game. But like, this is how it always goes, man. I've done enough of these seasons to know that
we're just lucky we haven't had to play Champions League.
Yeah, like imagine that. Like a lot of those teams, they're going to be dealing with that even worse than Seattle is pretty soon because of the toll that's going to take. Seattle they're not even juggling competitions right now, and they're essentially fielding an XI that's like the type of XI that you field when you're juggling like 3 comps. So
how do you think Craig is feeling right now, Weibel, after that debut from De La Vega? Because I know we were both kind of alluding to like this signing's kind of for his ass.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think he was probably encouraged by what he saw in the same way that we were, It's a brief cameo, really small sample. So I'm sure he's trying not to read too much into it one way or the other, good or bad. But I do think that we saw enough to get a pretty good idea of the type of player he is and the type of stuff that he can do. And me personally, I was encouraged by what I saw. I don't know how Craig feels about it, but I think mainly he looks like a fun, entertaining player to watch. His team hasn't had like enough of that. They didn't have enough of that last year. Is just that, that juice, that kind of swag on the field. Like he seems like he brings that. I'm hoping he continues to bring that because if nothing else, it'll make the team in this season a lot more entertaining.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot with Pete Carroll. Funny enough, is like we loved him as a coach because of the like culture that he brought and the like. Fuck it, we're just gonna have
energy
fun.
And vibes.
He brings good energy and vibes. Even when he stepped on the field, he was not even remotely scared to play. He was not even remote. He just looked like he was just like, yeah, dude, like whatever. This is normal. I'm having fun. I'm doing my thing.
Totally. And
like that doesn't happen a lot with people his age debuting after signing a major contract.
Yeah, and that's another thing I'll say about him is having gone to his opening press conference at Long Acres. I think a big reason for why they ended up finalizing this signing is because of how strong the character evaluation was. He was impressively comfortable at his press conference when he was interacting with us. It's tough. You're getting up there. He's a young guy, doesn't speak English, so he's doing the press conference through a translator. But you can kind of glean little things about guys' personalities when they're in that media setting. some guys on every team don't mind doing media stuff and are really good, insightful interviews. Then you also have a portion of guys on every single team that really hate the media, or I don't know, that's a strong word, but they would just as soon never get interviewed. Clint Dempsey was like that. Every press scrum that he did, he seemed like he didn't really want to be there.
Which is funny because now that's what he does for a living.
That is, it was funny the first time I saw Clint in the studio, because I'm always like, you always give us a little bit of a hard time, Clint. But like, I really like, I say that in jest, but like, I don't hold that against any guys that like don't like their press obligations. The only time it gets annoying is when they like roast you, and like they try and roast you for asking a stupid question when the question is entirely valid, which, that's happened to me a few times. But like, I understand, like, some guys don't really like the spotlight like that. And I think Clint was a more introverted type dude, just as one example. But Pedro de la Vega, at his press conference, he was super engaged. He was making eye contact with all the reporters. He was cracking jokes a little bit. He was giving pretty insightful answers through his translator. And I think you could see that the character evaluation that they did was probably strong, and that's like that's a huge piece of it when you're talking about signings for this much money. Is you want to make sure you have the right personality profile and fit. The Sounders have always talked about how much they kind of weigh that. But that was a big thing with Nico Ladero. Is the same thing, and he ended up bringing so much off the field in terms of leadership and mentoring the young players. So from all that perspective, I think De La Vega checks out. Now that doesn't guarantee that he's gonna hit on the field, but like you said, there is so much riding on this. I jokingly tweeted yesterday that Pedro de la Vega is the one man who can save this fan base from another year of the XG debate. And, I was joking, but that is kind of true, because he is the single biggest change that was made in terms of this attack, right? Other than that, it's pretty much the same pieces. It's Rusnak, Christian Roldan, Jordan Ruidiaz. Like, all these guys are good players in their own right, but I think that it's pretty clear, having watched this team last season, that there was some juice and creativity missing, and that was a void that needed to be filled. And this signing was to address that void. Yeah. And so if this is even a situation where he hits at like half or 60% capacity, that's going to cap the ceiling of the team. Now, if it's a huge hit and he becomes like a Thiago Almada tier productive type player, that skyrockets the ceiling of this team, because I think you have a team that has a really good defense that's returning most of its pieces from last year. This was an elite defense in MLS for most of last year. The statistics bear that out. I will say there was some stretches, particularly in Leagues Cup, where the defense did not cover itself in glory. However, I think looking at the whole sample, if you're judging it fairly and just looking at the stats, this team can hold people off the score sheet, and I expect that to be the case this year. The struggles doing that against LAFC yesterday notwithstanding, I expect this to be a very strong defensive team. This season is all about if this attack can produce at an elite level in MLS, and that's going to be the difference between contending for trophies and not contending for trophies. And the biggest variable that's going to determine that is this signing of Pedro de la Vega. So, it's going to be the thing to watch the most closely.
I agree.
We're going to be talking a lot more about him throughout the regular season, and I'm looking forward to tracking it however it works out. I think this team just needed something new, and I think that this signing definitely provides that, if nothing else, even if it's no guarantee how it's going to work out. I wanted to talk about the replacement ref because
oh my God.
All right. You're not going to hear me.
Let's throw a needle here, though, Ari. Let's be...
You're okay. In all seriousness, you're not going to hear me like incessantly bagging on the replacement refs all that much. I think everyone knows that it's not an ideal situation. I will say I have no problem saying that I stand with pro referees and what they're demanding. Like in this capitalistic society, man, there's just too much of needs like this not being met when what they're asking for doesn't seem that unreasonable. You know,
I mean, I think the biggest one for me, players fly private now. They, and refs are flying in coach still.
Yeah, that's wild. They should
give them business,
they should get
bro.
paid more. They should get treated well. We all love to give pro referees a hard time. I do it as much as anybody. They make some bad calls a lot, like refs in every league in the world.
Prem is terrible too.
Like if you've listened to this podcast for a while, I'm not a huge bag on the ref guy.
Nah.
However, like I just bring this up because 3 of these calls in this game were they were comedic, Noah.
Yeah, they were bad. He lost the game pretty early.
I was laughing while I was watching the game. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go through these and tell me if you remember them, and you can see if you can explain what was going on some of these. Okay, so the first one was kind of early in the first half. It was a corner kick where it's LAFC corner kick. Corner kick comes in. Ilya
dreaded
Ilya gets his head to it, and he heads it off the post. It deflects off the post, lands in play, I think, to Bwanga on the right side. And I don't know if the ball went out off Bwanga or not, but regardless, the ball never touched a sounder ever, and it didn't even get close. I think what he was calling was that the header deflected off a defender, but it didn't at all. It wasn't close, and then also it landed in play. And I think hit Bwanga anyway before it went out, and he called it an LAFC corner, which it was just inexplicable. Like, I don't like the Apple TV broadcast. They were trying to like play it off. They were like, oh, we don't really know what. I don't really get why that's
the best part about the Apple TV guys. Were at the end of the game, they go, man, that ref did a really good job. They literally hit him with that ref did a really good job.
So anyway, that one
I felt like maybe he was confused, or like one of the ARs was like, oh, there's a foul in the box on the header. And then he was just like, oh, okay, it's a corner. That's the only way I could explain it. Because, when there's jostling in the box, sometimes they'll be like, okay, foul. But I don't understand. That one is inexplicable.
I'm going to spend the rest of my waking days like wondering how that was a corner kick.
We should get him on the pod.
I like, please, exclusive interview to just explain what on earth was going on there. Christian Roldan got a really funny yellow card where someone on LAFC slide tackled. It was either Obed or Atencio, I want to say. And it was a yellow card challenge. The Apple TV broadcasters were talking about that too. And so Christian was arguing that it should have been a yellow card challenge, and he ended up getting a yellow for dissent. But the clip is just so funny because the broadcasters are talking about how that was a yellow card challenge, and the ref like really slowly and dramatically like pulls the yellow card out, and you're expecting him to show it to the LAFC player, and then he just kind of like slow turns and gives it to Christian, who had been arguing, but like I've seen worse dissent than that go unyellowed. So it was just like the fact that Christian ended up being the one to get the yellow card at the end of that sequence was
pretty funny.
Very, very funny.
And not to give a yellow to the tackle as well.
Yeah.
Like both, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to give the yellow for the tackle and for dissent, that might even make more sense.
Yeah.
But to just get it to Christian after that challenge. Yeah. Okay. And then also just so the Seattle's PK was won by Jordan Morris. And it was a really clear foul on Aaron Long that was, I mean,
Once a sounder. Once a sounder.
S2 legend Aaron Long.
Yep.
You could tell from watching it live that it was a PK. They were saying on the broadcast again that it was clear PK without even seeing the replay. You're going to miss those sometimes, so whatever. But then he goes over to VAR it, and it took him an hour and a half to look at that thing.
Yeah. It looked like Ari trying to use a computer, genuinely. Like, I was like, holy shit.
I don't know about you, but I was like having a mental breakdown while he was doing that review. I was like, dude, there's just no way that this can take this long.
Yeah.
There's one angle where you can see it very, very clearly. If you want to look at it 2, 3, 4, maybe even 4 times, that's still arguably too long for how obvious a call this is. He was sitting there for
8 minutes.
It was realistically, it felt like 8. Realistically, it was probably more like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But that is just like,
that's a little bit ridiculous. It was 3 minutes on top of the play happening, whistle, finger up to the ear type thing. You know what I mean?
I understand it's a replacement ref who's just learning VAR, whatever. That just it's a problem going back to pro reps. Like a call like that, I'm sorry, it does not need to take that long. Like, especially like we talk about the clear and obvious threshold, and they're like, well, if he's looking at it for that long, then how can it be clear and obvious? Well, the fact that he took an hour and a half to like come to the correct conclusion doesn't mean it was any less clear and obvious in this scenario.
No.
So I don't know, that one just like you know when something's just like, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it was
in
terrible.
Your head. Like that was brutal to watch.
It wasn't even like that was going to be a game-changing moment necessarily. Like,
I mean,
there's
it's a
still
PK call. So.
Well, correct, but I'm like, it's not like it's a tied game, an important match, and this is like a penalty that in the 91st minute that's gonna like win the game. You don't need to look at it for 18 full minutes. It's like, let's make a decision. Make the decision, be confident, and move on. You know what I'm saying?
It was brutal viewing. Anyway, LAFC winds up winning the game 2-1. They moved to 1-1-0. Seattle is now 0-1-0 ahead of their next game, which will come at Lumen Field, home opener next Saturday at Austin FC. We're going to preview that quickly at the end of the show, but real quick before that, if it's all right, Noah, I wanted to jump around the league.
Let's do it.
And we might be debuting a new Lobbying Scorchers segment here. I don't know if this is going to work, but I felt like it was kind of a good way to map out my takes from the rest of the slate last night. So I just wanted to do what I saw as the winners and losers from match day 1 in MLS. There's more games tonight, so I'm not going to have every result taken into account here.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine to just do it from what we saw last night, because a lot of teams played, and I think there are certain things that we can take away. So I got 3 winners to look at here. I mean, number 1, sorry about it, but I'm gonna go with LAFC. Like, the thing is, like, there was so many question marks with them given the turnover that they've had, and Carlos Vela is still unsigned. Like, he's not even in the picture right now, and so I was trying to pay pretty close attention during this game to if there's going to be any sort of adjustment period for them looking different or not as potent as the LAFC of years past. And I mean, I got to tell you, no, I didn't see it. I really did not see it at all. Like, you can blame some of that on Seattle's defensive frailties in the game and some of the issues they had controlling the game in midfield. I think LAFC is just, they're just kind of like that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, they play when they're on their game. That team, seemingly regardless of who the personnel is, they look like they're playing at a different speed than the opposition. And that's even without, like, they don't have Kellen Acosta anymore. Carlos Vela is not in the fold. They're integrating all these new signings. They have a new goalkeeper who, is one of the best goalkeepers of all time, but like, still, it's new nonetheless. They have all these moving parts, and I gotta say, it just looked the exact same to me.
Yeah.
It looked like they didn't miss a beat, which is, it pisses me off, dude. It pisses me off. Like, you think if Seattle had that much turnover that they would adjust that quickly? Like, I don't think so.
No.
Like, most teams aren't capable of doing that. Like I said, I think you got to credit, like, John Thorrington and their whole scouting department for being able to do that. It's impressive. It's impressive. I will make fun of them every time that they choke in a big game, but I also, when I see something that's impressive, like, I gotta give the credit where it's due. So
I think we've also talked about how the Sounders staff have it's slowly been like picked away like a vulture, right? Like they were incredibly talented for a long time in the front and back office of like just insane coaches, multiple people who are now head coaches who are just like watching film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that plays a huge role in being successful in this league and any league. And man, I mean, LAFC is just, they've got an amazing staff.
They do. Unfortunately, we have to give them the lobbing scorchers props.
Yeah.
You might not like this one either, but Portland was a big winner last night.
Finally, they realized Evander is trash.
Evander wasn't playing in Portland's home opener, which was against the Colorado Rapids. So I'll give that caveat.
Yeah, it was the Rapids.
It was the Rapids. The Rapids, a lot of the national pundits were talking about how great an offseason the Colorado Rapids had. I was a little bit skeptical. I understand why they got the positive press that they did. I think Jordy Mihailovic was a good signing. Zach Steffen is theoretically, for all the slander that U.S. men's national team fans levy at him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's theoretically an upgrade.
He's talented.
He's talented. I mean, the Phil Neville era, it got off to about as good a start as they could have hoped. 4-1 over Colorado. It was 4-0 in the first half. The Rapids were melting down for sure. They were playing zero defense, and Sam Vines had a deeply funny own goal for
that
Portland's
was hilarious.
Fourth goal. He kicked it right into his own net. But you do have to give the Timbers credit for beating up on an inferior
for these two
opponent.
takes here.
Hey, listen, man, like if Seattle's rivals are playing well, I'm gonna lay it on you guys and tell you, like, it's not something that anyone is gonna want to hear about. But I mean,
we're capital J journalists over here. Okay?
In this slate of games, two of Seattle's biggest rivals were two of the best performing teams of the weekend. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. So, and I think the takeaway, in all seriousness, though, is that the Timbers might not be in as bad a way under Phil Neville as we might have hoped. That two of their goals got scored by Anthony, who's a Brazilian U22 guy, I believe, that they signed last year, and he scored a couple really nice goals. And that's the kind of thing where if you hit on a signing like that, it can go a long ways. So anyway, it's one game, and it is the Colorado Rapids. But,
absolutely.
In terms of the teams in the match day one slate who had the best results, you gotta give credit to Portland.
You gotta give credit where credit's due. Unfortunately,
give it where it's due. And then my other one is DC United. They were playing their season opener against New England without their head coach, my boy Troy Lesane, formerly of New Mexico United. He got suspended on yellow card accumulation last year when he was coaching the Red Bulls. And so he had to sit out his first game as coach of DCU. And they beat New England 3-1. Veroni, the New England forward, got one of the dumbest sequence of double yellow cards
that was so
I've ever seen. That you probably won't see a worse ejection than that all season.
So stupid.
I don't know what he was doing out there. So like that gave DC the man advantage for like most of that game. But they took advantage of it. They won 3-1. Christian Benteke had a hat trick. They were all over him. So I mainly wanted to highlight that one because Troy Lesane he coached New Mexico United, which is my hometown club, and I'm a religious fan of them. I watch all their games, and I always credit Troy Lesane he was the inaugural head coach of New Mexico United, and he did a great job at like instilling culture in that organization and really getting the community in my home state to like rally behind that team. And they did such a good job with the lead up to it and the marketing, and the kits are the best in the nation, in my opinion. And a lot of that is a credit to Troy Lesane. And that's why I'm telling you, man, New York Red Bulls, I don't really know that much about their new coach. They should have just kept Troy Lesane. Like I was saying it the whole time. He did pretty well last year. He got them into the playoffs.
Who did they even have on their team last year?
Exactly. And they needed someone to, especially after all like the scandal and stuff with Gerard Struber, they needed someone to come in and like reset the tone and the culture of the whole organization. And when they gave him the interim tag or made him the coach for the rest of the season, I was like, this, having seen what he did for New Mexico United, this is the perfect guy for where they're at as an organization. And I thought that pretty much bared itself out on the field in terms of just the vibes around their team and the results they were getting. And they did my boy dirty. They let him go despite the great job he did in turning it around after that. He gets the job at DC United, which I was happy to see. And his first game, they get a 3-1 win, admittedly aided by a red card, but still, I'm happy for Troy Lesane.
I think
he's a good coach.
For the best for him.
Yeah.
To leave the Red Bulls organization.
Agreed.
I just don't think that there's any juice left in that entire
I mean, the one thing I will say about the Red Bulls is Emil Forsberg seems like a good signing, but
definitely
we'll see.
But
and then I also wanted to shout out Slam and Sam Adeniran for scoring the lever for St. Louis City. Slam and Sam Adeniran. We wish he could have stayed on the Seattle Sound. He's so good, dude.
He's so good, dude. It's ridiculous.
He's did you see the clip of the goal?
Yes, it was
He's
nasty.
Just beasts, like 3 defenders, like unstoppable freight train force of nature, clinical finish.
Yeah.
I'm watching that and I'm thinking about watching Abear rack up XG last year, and I'm just like, oh man. And Craig Wabel was asked about this. He had a whole explanation for how the salary.
Didn't he get asked about it last year?
Yeah,
too?
he did.
Yeah.
He gets all kind of like frosty when he gets asked about it. He's like, there's a reality of the salary cap league, and we can't keep players like this in these scenarios. And he has like an ironclad explanation for why Slam and Sam had to be moved on. But like, as much as it hurts us seeing Slam and Sam become a legitimate MLS striker, when Seattle especially really could have used someone with that exact skill set last year, that's got to hurt Craig Waves just like it hurts us. I don't think he enjoys seeing it, but like I enjoy seeing it, and I think Craig Waves probably does too, in the sense of like Slam and Sam has like a fun backstory. Like he's kind of been an underdog player, slept on, and he's really if you look at his numbers, the underlying ones and the stat sheet, this is like a legitimate MLS striker. So
he's nasty.
Shout out to Slam and Sam Adeniran. He's nasty. I wish him continued success.
Yeah, I took some heat on Twitter. I posted, "Damn, can't believe we let." I was like, "Damn, never forget that we cut this guy so we could sign Abear." And people were like, "That that's not what happened. That's not what happened." I'm like, let me shit post in peace, people. Let me live.
Let him post. Let
me post.
Losers from last night. This is gonna be more fun.
Yeah.
NYCFC stands out.
Don't disrespect my king, Talles Magno, who beat Messi on Ballon d'Or night, okay?
I mean, needless to say, they lost 1-0 to Charlotte FC on the road, and
that stadium
Charlotte
was
FC,
jumping though.
Yeah, they have a poppin' atmosphere at Bank of America Stadium, but like Charlotte is not a trendy pick from the pundits this year at all.
No,
and NYCFC was a trendy pick for a bounce back. When I voted on the first power rankings, I didn't have them that high, and I was like, I kind of have no idea what to think of this team because they've got a lot of new players.
Yeah.
And NYCFC seems like one of those teams that's always in the mix, even if you think that their roster might be not as good in a certain year as it was another year. Like they always, especially playing in the Yankees outfield, that's the biggest home field advantage in the league. You can, regardless of where you fall on whether that's fair or not, like the dimensions on that field, I've been to it, are pretty ridiculous.
They're disgusting.
And they've like learned how to tailor their team to be insanely dominant playing on that field with those dimensions.
I honestly think
they rack points off that every year, but they also usually have a good roster. And I don't know, like even on the road, 1-0 to Charlotte, that's tough.
I mean, we'll see. It's early. I don't think Charlotte will be terrible this year. I don't think they're going to be good.
I don't know. Have you seen their roster?
I mean,
they could surprise some people. I don't want to.
I don't think that they're going to be good. I'm just saying, I don't think that New York City FC is going to be good either.
It's it's one game, but it's kind of how I was feeling. I felt validated because I was looking at everyone else's votes for the power ranks. Yeah. Everyone had NYC way higher than I did. It seemed like, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to stand by this. And through one game, I feel validated, which is of course going to backfire soon, but I'll take the W for now. Other loser, Orlando City C drew CF Montreal, another not popular pick from the pundits, 0-0 at home. I watched a little bit of that game, and in what I watched, Orlando didn't really look especially close to scoring. And I think a performance like that at home in their first game of the season, with all the expectations that they're going to have after coming in second in the Supporters Shield and bagging 63 points last year, it was a little bit of a letdown to see him not score. It was interesting seeing Nico Ladero in purple. He started the game for them, I believe, and he played most of it. He might have gone the full 90. I'm not sure. But that seemed to me that like Nico's going to have a big role on that team. It's not going to be like he's like a bit player or a backup. I think Oscar Pereira is going to rely on him a lot. And it might not have worked yesterday, but I was always kind of in the camp that Nico's not, he's not what he used to be, but he's not as washed as a lot of people were saying. He still had double-digit assists last year. He still can run his ass off. So I think he's going to do some good stuff for them, and I think ultimately that'll be a good signing, but let down for them in their first game. And then I think the toughest one that I watched last night, Noah, and this will be a good segue into our little preview at the end here, but Austin FC, man.
Oof.
2-1 defeat to Minnesota United at Q2, but I'm telling you, man, I watched quite a bit of that game. I had that one up a lot. It was not that close.
How do you lose to Minnesota United?
Minnesota United looked like Real Madrid against Austin FC. Like it was 2-1 at the end because Austin scored in like the 94th minute, like right at the end. But that was pretty much a 2-0 game, and Minnesota, especially in the first half, all over them, like egregiously.
Yeah.
Like on top of them, on Austin's home field the whole game. Sebastian Driussi's already done his hamstring. Josh Wolf, he's on the hottest seat in the league. Like straight up.
I'm surprised they didn't get rid of him after last season.
I kind of was too. I think a lot of people were. I think a lot of their own fan base was. He definitely didn't do anything to make that seat, to cool that seat down last night. That team
is in shambles.
They're in shambles. Their sporting directors, this new guy, he has a lot of work to do, and admittedly, he didn't really make a lot of moves to make his mark in this window. Like I said, Driussi's hurt. They still have Manuel Rigoni, who's just really been an underperforming DP. Their CBs, Julio Cascante and whoever else they put back there, seem pretty error prone. They concede a lot of soft goals. But like really, like a lot of that, I'm telling you, man, like I watched a lot of that game. It looked non-competitive, abjectly non-competitive. Okay. So we'll segue that into the preview because Seattle's next opponent is Austin FC, coming to Lumen Field next Saturday. We'll try and make this a quick one. I know we've gone long, Noah, but I think I'm just excited to be back.
No, I know we're cooking.
There's
also a lot that happened.
There's been a lot that happened. To everyone who's bearing with us and listened to this point, thank you. We're just gonna knock out this preview and get out of here. But so I mean, from a Seattle perspective, if there's an opponent that presents an opportunity for a get-right game, I mean, on paper, you would think this would be it. I'm telling you guys, this team is down bad.
Horrendous.
They're down really bad. And that can go one of two ways when you play a team like this. And that's one thing I'll tell you is because as down bad as they might be, they're also desperate. Josh Wolf is coaching for his job. Like that is not an exaggeration or, me trying to rile anybody up. That is the reality of his situation. I guarantee you he knows that. I guarantee you he's well aware that he was a little on the rocks after how last year went for them. They were the most underachieving team in the league last year, I think, because the year before that, they made the Western Conference Final. They took all their screenshots of the preseason predictions. They had a rollicking good time dunking on everybody when they made a little playoff run. Got blown out by LAFC in the Western Conference Final. But Josh Wolf, he was up there. He was touting how much they defied the pundits and expectations. And a lot of people, myself included, were pointing out that they drastically overperformed like what
St. Louis
what their
style
performance numbers were. Yeah, exactly. Remember Fraud Watch?
Mm-hmm.
Austin FC was on Fraud Watch after that conference final run 2 years ago, and it was entirely validated last year because they didn't really make a lot of moves, and their luck evened out. that's what happens, man. That's the game. That's why when you do the like dunking on the pundits thing, when you have kind of an overachieving year, like that's fine. Like I would do the same thing if Seattle did that, but you're playing a dangerous game, especially if you're a coach up there talking about like chest thumping about how you proved everyone wrong, and then you go out and have a year like they did last year. I'm with you, man. I was like pretty surprised that they didn't make a change there, just because of like how kind of toxic the vibes.
Yeah,
got,
everything seemed terrible. And then they traded away.
Their fan base was feeling themselves after making the conference final, and they were all bragging about how they were going to defy the pundits again. And then when it didn't pan out like that, they got pretty upset.
I think the fans hate the club more than anyone. Like
they definitely I kind of see what you're saying.
Yeah,
they're definitely have become self-aware about what's going on.
I mean, if I were them, I'd be disgusted too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll one thing I will say is that like if they do make a move and get rid of Josh Wolf, I'm really gonna miss his press conferences. I've been tuning into them.
That's one
frequently.
of your favorite things.
It really is. Well, I always enjoy a coach press conference when a coach is under the gun, and when they start to get to that point, their answers start getting very adversarial and confrontational, and that has very much been the case dating back to last season with Josh Wolf at Austin FC, and. I think I was talking about this on one of the shows last season, but they have a couple reporters, but one in particular who is really antagonistic towards him. And I just love their dynamic for when he grills Josh Wolf and Josh Wolf is getting all defensive and they start going at it. I live for that. Like I cannot tune into those post-game pressers fast enough. I tuned right into the one after their loss versus Minnesota last night. Josh, like, what do you have to say, brother? What's going on? Tell me what's on your mind.
Yeah. Talk to me, Josh.
He already, it's one game into the season and he looks rattled up there. And he's trying not to come off as rattled, but like you can't hide it. You can't hide it when you're in the situation that he's in. So, anyway, that's not to say that this is going to be an easy game because
people love to use the Sounders to just
turn
their season around.
Exactly.
That's like the thing.
Exactly. So the whole goal of this game, you can't let that happen. This can't be one of those games where you get out intensitied by a team that's inferior to you. That's happened too much last year, mostly against the Portland Timbers, but against a couple of other teams too. Like, that's really what this game is going to come down to, because even if Seattle is still missing Rusnak, hopefully they can get JP and Stefan Fry back. And if that's the case, like you have more talent than this Austin FC team right now. Mm-hmm. This Austin FC team is rebuilding with a new sporting director. That's the situation that they are in. They're going to bring a team here that's going to try and probably muck up the game and get out of here with a 0-0 or a 1-1 if they can. That's honestly like what they should do. Yeah. Given the talent mismatch that's at play here, theoretically. So go jump on top of them. Mm-hmm. Put on a show for the home fans. Hopefully De La Vega can start.
I think if they have De La Vega starting that same roster that they rolled out against LAFC, you can bam.
Agreed.
You can win.
Agreed. And like you have to actually go out and execute that though. Like I'm not too hot and bothered about losing the LAFC game, but you need to put it in the rearview mirror and take a dub here at home against a team that is reeling with like essentially a lame duck coach. Yeah. Like, so just go out and execute, get 3 points, get the vibes back right after they suffered a little bit at LAFC yesterday. That's pretty much how I see it. You got anything on Austin FC?
No, I think it'll be a nice return to Lumen Field. Hope to see you all there. I'll be there. Ari, will you be there?
I'm going to be there. I'm not going to be doing live DERs anymore, as we know, but I'm still going to be going to the home game. So I'll be up in the PB.
Maybe we need to do some fan reacts after the game. Do some Arsenal Sounders fan, Lobbing Scorchers fan TV.
Ooh, I kind of like that idea. Yeah, that's not bad.
We'll see.
Well, in that case, we ran long on this one, so let's get out of here then, Noah.
Let's go.
Really good to be back. Thank you to everyone who's tuning back in. We're gonna try and get these going regularly, but I want to say I appreciate everyone. I got a few messages and tweets from people who were like, "Hey man, where's the podcast? Is it coming back?" And like, it makes me feel good that like we have listeners and people that like enjoy tuning into this show. Me and Noah have been doing it for fun when we were roommates, which we're not anymore. But like when you guys give us positive feedback, like it gets us motivated to like want to keep doing it and know that like you all enjoy it and that we're not just talking to ourselves. So appreciate you all. We're gonna keep grinding these out. Yeah, that'll be a wrap for this one. Until next time, we out.
Peace.